Okay, ready for a deep dive?
Always.
Perfect. Because today we're diving into Jay Kranda's book, and let me tell you, the title alone, Online Church is Not the Answer, kind of makes you go, whoa, for a second.
Yeah, it's definitely an attention grabber, right?
For sure. So before we get too far, what's the deal with this book? Like, give me the quick rundown.
So Kranda, he's looking at this whole online church thing, and he's really pushing back against this idea that going digital only is the end game.
Which is interesting, right? Because hasn't he been doing online ministry for years?
Exactly. He's been in the trenches at Saddleback, one of the pioneers of this whole online church movement.
Right. So it's not like he's coming at this from some tech-phobic angle, like, get off my lawn.
Not at all. If anything, he knows better than most the potential of online ministry. But he's also seen firsthand the need for a more nuanced approach, one that goes beyond just streaming, which is where the book's subtitle comes in, beyond just streaming church to hybrid disciple making.
I like it. Hybrid disciple making. Catchy, but also makes you think.
Right. It's not either or, it's both and.
So where do we even start unpacking this whole hybrid disciple making thing?
Well, I think it's important to start with Kranda's own journey at Saddleback because it really mirrors this whole evolution of the church and technology. You know, it seems like every time there's a new technological advancement, churches are so quick to jump on board.
Oh, yeah, totally. Sometimes it even feels like we're adopting these tools before we even really know what they're for or how to use them effectively in ministry.
100%. And Kranda talks about this in the book. He shares the story about how back in 1981, Saddleback bought all these computers, spent a fortune on them, and some people in the church were like, what are we doing? This is crazy. This isn't what church is about.
I can just imagine.
Oh, and it gets better. Some people were so upset they actually left the church over it, said it was a sign of the end times or something.
Oh, wow. Talk about a technology divide.
Right. But here's the kicker, and this is where it gets really interesting. Years later, those same people who left, they came back to Saddleback and were completely blown away by how much the church had grown.
No way. And I bet those computers they were so skeptical of played a big role in that growth.
You got it. It's a powerful story because it challenges us to think about our own assumptions about technology and the church. Are we too quick to dismiss new tools?
Or are we too quick to embrace them without really thinking through the implications? It's a tough balance.
It is a tough balance, and I think that's what Kranda is wrestling with in this book. He's not saying technology is bad. He's not saying it's the answer to all our problems either.
He's saying we need to be thoughtful, intentional, and maybe a little bit humble as we figure out how to use these powerful tools to fulfill the mission Christ has given us.
Well said. It's about finding that sweet spot where we're using technology to enhance our ministry, not to replace the things that really matter, like real in-person relationships.
Which, let's be honest, can be messy and unpredictable.
Absolutely, but also incredibly life-giving and transformative.
No doubt. And that's what we're all about, right?
100%.
One of the things that really struck me in the book was Kranda's analogy of the thief on the cross.
Oh, yeah. That's a good one.
It's like he's going straight to the heart of it, What's the bare minimum for salvation?
Yeah.
And then he connects that to church membership, especially in this digital age. And it makes you think, are we being too rigid about what it means to be part of a church community in today's world?
It's a question we have to wrestle with, right? And I think Kranda's point is not to lower the bar for discipleship, but to recognize that there are different levels of connection, especially in a digital world, and each one can play a role in someone's spiritual journey.
Okay, so say more about these digital degrees of connection, because I'm not sure I totally follow.
So picture the Tower of Babel, right?
Okay, got it.
At the very top, you have that face-to-face, in-person connection. That's the ideal, right?
Yeah.
Being in the same room, experiencing things together.
Makes sense.
Then, way down at the bottom, you have something like texting. Quick, often impersonal, lacking that depth you get from actually being with people.
Yeah, night and day compared to being face-to-face.
Exactly. And then in between those two extremes, you have this whole spectrum of other digital interactions, like video calls, online groups, social media engagement. It's not a perfect analogy, but it helps us see that not all digital interactions are created equal.
So are you saying we should rank them like this one's better than that one?
Not necessarily about ranking them, but more about being discerning, recognizing that some digital interactions are going to be more conducive to building genuine community and discipleship than others.
Okay, I'm with you. But I still worry about creating a hierarchy where it's like, well, if you're not in person, you're not really part of the community.
And that's not what Kranda's advocating for at all. He's simply saying that we need to be intentional about using these different levels of connection to help move people towards a deeper relationship with Christ and with one another.
So it's less about saying this is good or this is bad, and more about saying how can we use these tools strategically to help people grow in their faith.
Exactly. It's about meeting people where they are and helping them take the next step in their journey.
Okay, so if it's not just about streaming services online, what is Saddleback doing to bridge this gap between online engagement and real-world impact? Give me some concrete examples. So give it to me straight. How does Saddleback take this whole digital connection thing and actually make a real-world difference?
Well, they've got this thing called the 4S framework, and it's all about bridging that gap between online and in-person.
Okay, I'm intrigued. Break it down for me. What are these 4 S's all about?
So you've got streaming, strengthening, social, and systems. Each one plays a crucial role.
All right, let's take these one by one. Streaming, that's a no-brainer, right? Everyone's doing it.
True, but Kranda's point is you can't just phone it in. It's not enough to stick a camera in the back and hit record. You got to be intentional. Saddleback, they invest in quality production, engage with online viewers, make them feel like they're part of the community, even if they're miles away.
It's about creating an experience, not just broadcasting a service.
100%. Now let's talk strengthening. This is where online small groups come in, and Kranda argues they've been huge for Saddleback.
I can see how those would be powerful. No need to worry about finding a babysitter or fighting traffic.
Exactly. People can connect no matter their schedule or location. And we're not talking about some superficial online forum here. These are real groups with real conversations, real relationships being built.
Kranda mentions this guy, Richard, right? The night shift worker in London.
Yeah. Richard couldn't find a group that worked with his crazy hours, so he joined one of Saddleback's online groups and found this whole community he never knew existed.
Proof that these digital connections can be game changers.
Absolutely. And then you've got the social aspect. Again, not just posting announcements, but creating content that meets people where they are, sparks conversations, offers support.
Building community beyond the screen.
Precisely. And finally, the glue that holds it all together. Systems.
The behind-the-scenes stuff that nobody sees but makes everything run smoothly.
Exactly. Databases, communication platforms, all the tech that allows for seamless integration. But here's the million-dollar question. How do these 4 S's translate into actual on-the-ground impact?
That's the so what we're always after.
Right. And this is where Kranda's extensions model comes in.
Okay, so what are extensions? Lay it on me.
Think of them as like micro churches, often meeting in homes or community centers that use Saddleback's online services as their main gathering, but then they also have their own in-person get-togethers for things like small groups, service projects, you name it.
So it's like having a local expression of Saddleback, even in places where they don't have a physical building.
Exactly. And it all started, kind of by accident, with Kranda himself. He was in San Francisco for a conference and decided last minute to invite some of Saddleback's online folks to meet up for burgers.
I love it. Sometimes the best ideas are born in burger joints.
Right. Well, a bunch of people showed up, everyone was stoked to connect in person, and it got Kranda thinking, what if we could replicate this? Spark these in-person gatherings organically from our online community.
And boom, the extensions model was born.
Pretty much. And it's taken off. Kranda tells this great story about a couple, Dylan and Hannah, who moved from California to rural Minnesota. They felt called to start a Saddleback extension, so they turned a barn on their property into a meeting space.
Now that's dedication. Talk about answering the call.
No kidding. It's amazing to see how this model empowers people to take ownership of their faith and create community. But here's the thing. Kranda also talks about this idea of intentional friction.
Intentional friction. Now that sounds intriguing. Tell me more.
So he realizes that people can get comfortable just staying online. It's easy, it's convenient, no need to leave your house.
I plead guilty as charged.
So Saddleback builds in these little friction points, gentle nudges, to encourage people to take that next step towards in-person connection.
Like what? Give me an example.
For example, they added a line to the membership covenant for online members where they commit to either joining or starting an in-person small group.
It's like a built-in accountability partner.
Exactly. They're not saying, you're not a real member if you don't do this. It's more like, hey, we're here to support you. We want to help you find that deeper level of connection.
Okay, so as we wrap up our deep dive today, what are some key takeaways? What can our listeners do, even if they're not part of a mega church like Saddleback?
Great question. I think the biggest takeaway is this. Digital tools are amazing, but they're just that. Tools. They can help us connect, they can help us grow, but they can't replace that real, in-person, messy, beautiful thing we call community.
Amen to that.
And the good news is you don't have to be part of a mega church to make this happen. It starts with taking those small steps. Reach out to someone online, invite them for a virtual coffee date, or if you're feeling brave, see if they want to meet up in person. You never know what might come of it.
Sometimes the smallest spark can ignite a fire.
Exactly. And who knows, maybe that spark will lead to the next great extension in your own community.
I love that. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive. Big thanks to our expert for breaking down this whole online church and hybrid discipleship thing. It's definitely given us a lot to think about.
Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
And to our listeners, keep those deep thinking caps on, and we'll catch you next time for another deep dive.